Hello and welcome to today's KDP University's At Home with KF Breene. Oh, I skipped my slide. I'm Trisha and I'll be your host today. And for the past 5 years, I've moved around Amazon's books teams, learning the business so I can share it with authors. All right, but we're definitely here to speak to KF Breene. And she is a Wall Street Journal, USA Today, Washington Post, and Amazon's most sold charts best-selling author of paranormal romance, urban fantasy, and fantasy novels. With over 4 million books sold, when she's not penning stories about magic and what goes bump in the night, she's sipping wine and planning her shenanigans. She lives in Northern California with her husband, 2 children, and out of work treadmill. Welcome, KF Breene.
Hi, how's it going?
Hi. Good. How are you?
Good. I'm doing great. Thanks.
Good. So, California, things are a little dicey out there right now, aren't they?
Yeah, we just had my parents over for a few nights stay because they were evacuated from their house again. This has happened before. Luckily, it's good. Fire went the other direction, so they moved back in. But yeah, fires are still, we're not even in fire season yet. So this is a precursor to fire season. So that's
Oh my
nerve-wracking.
goodness.
Yeah.
That okay. I'm glad you're safe and I'm glad your
Yeah.
family's safe.
Yeah.
All right. So let's start with a little background. I always love to get a little bit of background. So, when did you decide that being an author was your calling?
So it wasn't really a calling so much as a life ultimatum. Throughout my life, I've done a lot of different careers. I get bored in one thing. I learn all I can. I get bored and I move on.
Hmm.
And I got to a stage where I was like, I'm an adult. I have a young kid. I have to stick with accounting. Like I came back to accounting. I had to stick with accounting. That's it. Stop. Be an adult. And then I was writing on the side just because I got married and bored. So I was like, let's do an adventure. Um, and I learned about KDP, and so I just figured, let's self-help. I was never going to seek a traditional deal. It was
Uh-huh.
all for hobby, all for fun, all to just write down what was in my head, have my own adventure and just write it down. So I tried self-publishing, and by the end of the year, it was a full-time job, but I had a full-time job. I was commuting 2 hours a day. It was really stressful. For my accounting job. So I was like, I got to the stage where I had to pick one.
Mhm.
I couldn't do both. And to be real honest, I picked the one that made the most money. So I was supposed to be an accountant forever, and then here I am, an author now. So we just
Well, we
stick to
thank
my
you for that.
jobs. Yeah.
All right. So you write in urban fantasy. Um, Talk a little bit about your genres and why you chose to write in those genres.
So I've actually written in quite a few. I started actually in romance, kind of contemporary, funny cowboys.
Mhm.
That was the first thing I wanted to have an adventure with. But I put that all under a different pen name because then
Mhm.
I moved on to paranormal romance, then to fantasy, now I'm on urban fantasy and paranormal women's fiction. And then after
Mhm.
this, I'll probably move on to something. I read all the genres, so
Mhm.
I like to I just like to write, stuff I'm interested in. So I just keep moving around, really. Which you're not really supposed to do, everybody has said, but it is what it is.
Hey, it's working for you. So if
Yeah,
it's working for you, go for it.
yeah. Keeps it
Um,
fresh.
there you go. So that pen name that you started writing under, do you still write under that, or is that something you've just kind of moved to the side?
Well, so I've always primarily written under KF Breene, and
Mhm.
then when I started writing fantasy, people were like, "Oh, your romance heroines are too weak." And I'm like, "Well, you can't really stab someone in the eye in real life. That's not something
Yeah,
that really happened. They'd go to jail."
right.
So then I moved that. I created a pen name for that. It's kind of backlist. Yeah, it's kind of
Okay.
separate. So I don't write under that one anymore. I just only write this one.
Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Let's talk about one of the newer genres, and you mentioned it, and that's the women's the women's paranormal fiction. That's kind of a relatively new thing. And from somebody, I grew up reading Eddings and McCaffrey and Brooks and all that fantasy, but as I'm getting older, the protagonists I can't relate to them anymore. So you've come up with a solution to that.
Yeah, and these books exist. So I always give Practical Magic as an example. It's what women's fiction tends to be is focusing on relationships more than romance or adventure. Often women's fiction doesn't have much adventure, but I'm 41 now, but I started writing that when I was 40, and I decided, I'm not done. I did the marriage and children thing. That's great. But like now I'm in my middle years and I'm like, okay, what's next? Let's start the next chapter in my life. And my friend Shannon Mayer and I realized there isn't that for a lot of fantasy and paranormal. It's scattered out there, but I want to read more of it. I want to write it. And I think it's, it was a huge risk at the time. We had no idea if it would even be received because it doesn't really exist in a cluster. These stories exist, but they don't. It's hard to find them. They're kind of mixed in with all the very young heroines that are seeking their true love, right?
Right.
So we decided, yeah, let's create a genre and try to gather it all together. Hopefully the people that wrote these books before see it, and then they can, group their books in with all of these. So it's all in the same place. So readers have the ability to find these books. And it's so far, the turnout's been amazing. Everybody's like, yes, I know what you're talking about. This is the life I'm living. These are the adventures I want to have. Like, this is awesome. Yeah. So, and super fun to write because like, I'm using my own experiences, like fracturing ankles as I walk down the stairs. Like, let's make a joke about it. You know what I mean? Why not? So, yeah.
Exactly. Good. So let's talk about, we have a lot of authors that are kind of brand new to the space. They're just starting their career. And here you've started this new genre. So let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced when you launched in this new, you're reaching out to other authors to get them on board and start this trend. And then kind of tell us a little bit about that journey. What did it look like and what were some of the challenges you faced?
Well, the main challenge is breaking the mold, right? A lot of times middle-aged women and older are looked at like, oh, the old crone, the bad guy. They're not the heroines. They're not the ones that get their adventure. So the first part was, how do we break the mold? And with any new thing I do, when I move into a new genre, for example, there's never any safety net. So I have a lot of experience starting over. And so the first thing I always like to do is create an event out of it. And so what do you need to have an event? Well, first you need more people. I had Shannon and I, but we were like, okay, we need more people. So we started pitching these ideas. Women's fiction has been blowing up all over. You have more movies about it. You have like Menopause the Musical is a huge thing when I went to Vegas, and I thought that was hilarious. You have women that want to talk about this stuff. And so you're like, okay, but I'm not a touchy-feely type person. I like swords and crazy. So, and Shannon's the same. So we were like, okay, so we need a concept. And of course, the concept is our lives and ourselves, basically, what we write. And we need the people. So we addressed, people that we knew wrote quality books, put time and effort and passion into their books, have been around a while, are of a certain age. And I said, look, what do you think? If you want to do this, we'll do it all together. And they said, okay. And then next it was marketing. How do we figure out how to sell it? How do we figure out how to get people interested? Let's collect everybody together. So then, the big marketing push, we designed it, planned it in stages. Like first we hint about it to create some mystery. Then we give an idea of what it is. Then we release some logos, so built it up into this kind of, gave it momentum by sprinkling seeds of interest. And then all of a sudden, everybody was on board. So we're like, oh God, fast track, hurry. You know what I mean? So let's not lose this momentum.
Right.
So yeah, release day was pretty amazing. We released all at the same time, so they'd all
Uh-huh.
be available together, so everybody could just dig into their favorite authors, and there's more where that came from.
Hmm.
Um, and it worked. So yeah, and it's been going strong. So
Good, good. So primarily social media marketing?
yeah, primarily social media, and the authors we chose, they have a long-standing readership, so
Hmm.
each of us brought our own bases to the party, and then
Hmm.
we combined them all together, and mostly in social media. And obviously our newsletters as well. So our
Right.
newsletters really helped us launch, and then social media kept us going.
Hmm.
But the initial buzz was mostly social media, which is, when a bunch of authors sitting behind their computers with fuzzy slippers. That's kind of the only place you can gather, right? So,
Right.
yeah.
All right. Good. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think that that was, it's always challenging and risky to move out in a new direction, and especially something that just hasn't, it's one thing to move into a new direction of an established genre, but it's something completely different to start a brand new one. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, because I get bored, I've done it a few times now. So I actually love the challenge. That's why I'm still an author, because there's always a new challenge. You just have to
Uh-huh.
be courageous enough to embrace it. And I don't know that I'm courageous or stupid, but I
Mhm.
just run at it. So yeah, it's fun for me. I don't know, except when
Well,
it
and
fails.
I think that that's one of the things that I've been learning as I talk to more authors is that if your passion is behind the direction that you're moving, that's where the success comes from. It's not, targeting new genre. It's that passion and that drive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I grew up when women weren't really looked at as ambition. They were then just
Mhm.
pushy, but
Yes.
I just never cared. And so
Right.
it's nice that my ambition can flourish. Like the sky's the limit. I just have to keep going. So it's
Mhm.
nice. I like it.
Good. Good. Um, so self-publishing, and you mentioned that you never thought even considered going the traditional route. You're self-published. What is it that one, drew you to self-publishing, and then what is it that you wish all these new authors or these authors that are listening to us, what is it that you would love to tell them or share with them?
What was the first question?
I know
Have
that
to
was a
run
big
that.
long
Like they
question.
just fall out of my head. Oh,
I
what drew
completely
me?
understand.
Right.
Yeah, what drew you to self-publishing?
I get there eventually.
There, it's okay.
Well, just I heard it was a thing, and
Hmm.
it like I said, it was a hobby, so I figured, well, let's see how it goes.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm a personality that if I do something, I do it pretty hardcore, and
Hmm.
I'm afraid of failure, to be honest.
Okay.
So as soon as I published, I started earning money, and this was in 2013, so it was much easier than it is now.
Hmm.
You put a free book out there, and suddenly people are reading your books, which is crazy. But also, I learned that you should never self-edit if you're like me and don't know grammar. And most of the time, only I know a couple people that like one person that self-edits, but everybody else, I say don't. That's a very dangerous road. I learned that the hard
Hmm.
way. And then I had created my own covers, and I am not a designer, so that was rough. So as soon as I, was starting getting the bad reviews, that to me was triggering my I'm failing button.
Hmm.
So I that's when I decided, yeah, I have to do this properly. And so that's when I started researching what I need to do, how I need to do it, finding editors, finding cover people. So by the time I released the second series, that's the series that did really well.
Hmm.
I think I earned more in a month than I did in my whole year in accounting. And I went, oh, so yeah, it was pretty amazing. And also a lot of work. So
Hmm.
yeah, and
So
I'm just going for it.
where did you find so this is another question we get frequently. Where did you find your people? Where did you find your cover designer? Where did you find your editor?
Um, at that time, so I am always looking for
Mhm.
new cover people, because some people, just like a writer might be great at one genre and terrible at the next. I find cover people are the same. And editors aren't real. It's not about great or terrible. It's about who do you trust, who works with you, who understands your voice and can work with that. So where did I find them? So I'll say today because today's more relevant than back then.
Right.
Today, there's a lot of Facebook groups out there that and on Facebook groups that have cover designers, and they all kind of sell their wares that way. I keep my eye out for someone that's interesting, or I keep my eye out for a pre-made cover that might work. Other than that, I might go to books online that are doing really well that I like their cover and see if they list their cover person in there. I ask other people, if there's a bunch of authors, someone might know a cover person. I tend to ask only the people that I know personally, because it can be overwhelming to ask a random stranger and they'll be like, who are you? You know what I mean? So I tend to just ask anyone that I know a little bit. And editor was basically the same way. I found a few great editors over the time, but I got from my friend, I eventually settled on one that really gets me. So I take 95% of all of her suggestions because they're good. I trust her. So it's a trial and error situation. And it's just constantly writing names down as you come to them.
And I think that that's a really great call out, because I've experienced where authors will say, well, I found this editor, and they've stuck with the editor, and they're wondering why it's not working. About how many editors have you gone through as you?
I think I have had 5 over the years.
Okay.
And finally landed on the one I have now. And she went on maternity leave at one stage, and I tried another, and she was lovely, but didn't quite. She just, when she put, when she tried to reorganize my sentences, because I am the worst at grammar and spelling, it's ridiculous. You have no idea. If you don't know how to do grammar and spelling, it's okay. You can still be an author. Just get a really good editor. She would try to add things, trying to sound like me, and it was just like, no, sweetie, you don't have any snark at all. Like, it's that can, with that kind of humor. So
right.
Yeah, I really hope my editor doesn't leave me. So.
Let's talk about that snark and that humor. We get questions about how to put that snark and humor into books. And as you just mentioned, you either have it or you don't. Do you feel like that for writers, or is that a learned skill?
I would say snark is a learned skill just from life. I've just always been sarcastic and snarky. That's just my personality. Irish have a saying, my husband's from Ireland, take the piss, which is basically just make fun of everything and make fun of myself. When I trip, I tell everyone because I find it hilarious. So that I can't write a book without that in it, because I like to make fun of really dire situations. It's gallows humor, basically. So if you don't have that, I don't know how it would go trying to put that into your books. Instead, I would say find the kind of humor, if you want humor in your books, find the humor. What is your humor? And put that in there, because when you try to fabricate something, everyone can usually tell, but when it's genuine, that's when it really sings. So yeah, if you want more humor, I'm sure there's a funny bone in your body somewhere. Put that in there. Put your humor in there. And if you don't want humor, I don't know. I can't do books without humor, so I don't know.
I think that's a really great call out, and I think that that's one thing that's starting to come out, is if you're true to yourself, then that's what's going to come out in your writing.
Definitely. Yeah. You need to know who you are. And it's not even just who you are as an author, just who are you? What makes you tick? I think Stephen King says write from experience. And it doesn't have to mean like you flew a fighter jet. It means that you are drawing on your life's little picadillos, and you're injecting that into the story to give it a little bit of flavor. So yeah, and don't be afraid to do that, because you might think you're the total weirdo like this thing, and then you realize that there's a whole bunch of other weirdos out there and they totally get you, and it's pretty amazing. I didn't realize there were so many people that were also misfits. You know what I mean? And we all come
Right.
together and we're a bunch of silly weirdo misfit tribe. So it's cool.
And it works.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So self-publishing, I think I mentioned this earlier, and I want to go back to this because I think it's really important when we're talking about self-publishing. What is it that you wish, that you could share, the one piece of advice you could share with newer authors? What would it be?
I'd say the very first thing is kind of what we just touched on. Find your brand. And when I say brand, I really mean voice. Find your voice. I might be in a lot of different genres, but it's the same voice. It's the same snarky gallows humor, action adventure type voice. It's me. I've turned that into my brand. So when I talk to somebody like you, or I talk to a reader, or I'm online, it's the same me that exists everywhere. And the only reason I have the courage to do that, whereas when I started, definitely I would try to be just super nicey. The only reason I have the courage to do that is because I found so many readers that share the sense of humor, right? So I can just be me, and they're happy that I am me. So I would say the very first thing you need to figure out is, who are you as an author? What's your voice? What do you want? What drives you? And then instead of hopping on a trend or trying to hit a bestseller immediately out of the park, cultivate your readership based on your voice and your brand, because then it doesn't matter what trends are out there. It doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. They show up for you. And then you can communicate and connect with them, and they're excited for that, and you're excited, and it fuels you. It's a very singular job. So when you can connect with readers, it becomes this, it's a bigger thing. It's a lot more wholesome, I find. I don't know. That might be weird. But it's just, I like connecting with my readers because it gives me more drive, I think. And I can only do that because I know who I am now. I know what I want to do. I know where I am, and they give me courage to continue being that way. So I would say that's the main thing, is figure out yourself first, and then start, run at it, or walk at it, or I don't know, hobble, whatever you want to do. But yeah.
So let's talking about finding those readers. I think that's a big challenge for new authors, is figuring out where their readers are. How do you find new readers?
So, like I said in the beginning, it's a lot easier. You just release a book free at that time, or whatever it is, and you find them based on who's not giving you 1-star reviews, right? But today's day and age, that's not so easy. So I would say, save up a little and maybe do some small scale ads if that's all you can afford, whatever you can afford. I find it, because everybody always has to find new readers. So I find new readers with paid advertising technically. And this goes back to business now. You take off your author hat for this stuff and you put on your publisher hat, because there are two different hats. I don't call them my book babies. As soon as they go to editing, they're a product, because then I have to put on my publisher hat. So I can't be precious about it. So then it comes down to, who is your audience? Who are you trying to sell to? If it's a paranormal women's fiction, well, it's probably middle-aged and older women, but maybe a sprinkling of younger women, and a couple men might fall in there. So if I'm doing paid advertising, I'm targeting those groups. AMS on through Amazon, they have advertising there. You can do an auto ad if you want, or you can do targets to target like books. That's a place to find people. So when you're using paid advertising, you need to know that, for starters. But then the most important thing, I think, is, even if people stumble on your book and it's not paid advertising, you need a way to collect them. I think that is what my goal is, not only to just find people, but to keep them. So, use your book, in the back of your book, your back matter, direct them to social media, try to get them on your email list first and foremost, and make sure you have a healthy email list. Make sure it's, connect with people there. And if they don't want to, which email people sometimes hate it, fine. Here, sign up, follow me on Amazon, come to this other place, find me on this social media outlet, find them, get them, keep them, and then connect with them. So then next time you release a book, you have them there, and you can launch your book higher, and that leads to more people. So when you're starting out, it's really hard. Go ahead and get your first reader win, and then you got 5, and then 10. Just keep working. It comes. And eventually, after a lot of hard work, you'll have it. You'll be able to launch into the top 10 of the store, or the top 100, or the top 1,000, whatever your excitement is. That's what you
Hmm.
need to go for. And take it small. Aim small, miss small, right? Aim for the
Hmm.
top 5,000 if you want. And then you hit that and you're like, yeah, have a celebration. Just keep going. So
Speaking of celebrations, you've hit several of the bestseller lists.
aim small, miss small. I've been working. So I started in 2013 and I am very goal oriented. So yeah,
Hmm.
I've been following, my advice comes from learning the hard way. Always. Always I learn the hard. I take a lot of risks and I fail half the time, but I learn from it.
Hmm.
So yeah, I've just been, every time I have a success, small or large, I pick it apart. I figure out why, how I got there, you know, the things that can be repeated,
Hmm.
and I try to repeat them. And maybe they'll work the second time and maybe they won't, but always asking myself, how did I do this so well? And
Hmm.
then, or what went wrong and it didn't do well, and then
Hmm.
adapt immediately. So if
Right.
I have and I've had some releases that didn't go how I thought. So I was like, oh, so I'm adapting immediately. I'm changing things up. I'm doing more ads or less ads,
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a work in progress. And now it feels awesome to hit those goals because
Hmm.
of all the hard work that went in, to building it up. And it just lets you know that it's working. So
Hmm.
keep working, you know.
Hmm.
There's always a new goal. Until I have a movie deal, there's always a new goal.
So movie deal's your new goal, right?
Those are so I always wanted to be in film. I went to film school for a while and then I was like,
Oh.
oh, I'm terrible at this. I don't want to be poor my whole life. So I went to then I went to accounting. That was one of my
Uh-huh.
segue into accounting. Uh, and so right now I'm just directing my films through my writing, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, I would love to do film through a book one day. That would be
Mhm.
amazing. So, and then I'll have to do something else.
There you go. New goal after that. Um, let's talk a little bit about marketing a new release. So can you walk us through kind of step by step what marketing for a new release looks like today?
So it depends, and I'm in a good position where I have that base that I've been building up over the years, um,
Hmm.
and I'm still very into like my newsletter. Once a month I actually engage as much as possible. It's not just for business; it's also just to connect. So I
Hmm.
have healthy release push. So for a new person, that's not going to be there. You have to start a little smaller, and that's totally fine. You have to always start somewhere. So it really depends on if it's a first in series or if it's later in series. Later
Hmm.
in series, all I really do is count down, hey, this is coming. Do a boosted post or something, alert my newsletter, try to let everybody know that there's a new release. I'm not really looking for new readers on book 5, right? I'm looking to make sure the established readers know that there's a book out.
Right.
So that I slack off a bit. The first in series, however, I go all out always because you don't just want to find new readers, which book one can do very well. You also want your own readers to get, especially if it's a new genre or totally different series. It's a lot of people get nervous about trying new things. I'm one of them. So you want to get them on, and what I usually do is I usually start at a price like $2.99 where it's easy to do. I'm in
Hmm.
Kindle Unlimited, so that's
Hmm.
another outlet for people that can try it, not so much risk. I do a lot of paid advertising to get new people and just to alert people. New book, try it. New book, try it. New book, try it, please. Um, I do and then typically, like I said before with paranormal women's fiction, if you create an event in something, and when you're looking at advertising and you're looking at marketing, don't just look in the book world. You always look around you because people like Apple do it amazingly. And you can, a big advertising firm, they don't just handle one thing. They don't just handle watches. They handle all things.
Hmm.
So you can pick up little nuggets there. So one of the things that, these people do, they create a big event So this huge summer blockbuster movie, they create this sense of it's bigger than just us. It's
Hmm.
everybody's doing it. So
Right.
I try to do that, and I might do that with another author, and we have this big, huge giveaway Facebook party, right? And we invite other authors, and it's just come in here, we'll shower you with gifts. Please try my book, or let's at one stage I got other authors. I usually try to get other authors working with me in that, so we all kind of
Hmm.
push our things together. Women like to work together. Um,
Hmm.
and so we did a treasure hunt. So within each of our books, we put like a little graphic in one of the chapters, and then to enter the drawing, each person would have to take a picture with that graphic somewhere. So we did it for each of our books, and it was, so a
Hmm.
little fun and games. And I don't know, I just try to come up with new things that aren't tried and true,
Hmm.
while also doing paid advertising, while also I do everything I possibly can. And I panic. I do a lot of panicking. So people always think that you get to where I am and they're like, oh, you just go ahead and release, you haven't made. No, every
Hmm.
release, I am pushing. So yeah, I think being imaginative and then looking at marketing around you and trying to apply that to you is what
Hmm.
really has helped me as far as
Okay.
larger picture.
I think that's great advice. I mean, definitely we can learn from um, all sorts of different marketing and then the creativity and those events and relying on other people to help promote. I mean, because then you're cross promoting. Now,
Right.
one of the things that I've talked to other authors about is that some people love cross promoting and some people are like, you never want to do that, right? Because there you might get an initial kind of boost to your newsletter, but they're not going to stay because they're not really interested in you. Are you seeing that, or are you choosy with who you cross promote with, or do you try to cross promote with other genres? Let's talk a
So
little
I
bit about that.
don't cross promote to, I never, so I'm not gonna say I never. Now I don't cross promote to get people on my newsletter. I don't want people that I don't know. I want people that want to be on my newsletter on my newsletter.
Hmm.
But social media cross promotion, yes, number one, I am choosy. I want someone that I know really, because you have to work together. I
Hmm.
want someone that I know they write well, or they put effort into quality. That's really
Hmm.
important to me. I don't want to say try this person's book if their book has a lacking in
Hmm.
quality, if it's not professional. But after that, yeah, and social media cross promotion for me is more about creating that event, creating the fun. Like for Paranormal Women's Fiction, we didn't get each other. I didn't even want people in my Facebook group. I've moved my group since, but my Facebook group that I didn't know, because I'm like, I'm a real special personality. I don't need to inflict that on someone that isn't ready for it. You know what I mean? After you've read one of my books, if you've made it and you liked it, you're ready for it. But if you're
Right.
just, you don't know me, I'm gonna scare you. So I don't need you in my space. You can find me when you want to be here.
Right.
So yeah, no, I don't like that end of it, but I do
Hmm.
like fun and games, and let's have a good time all together. And
Hmm.
then you get to know me that way, and then maybe you'll try a book, and maybe you won't,
Hmm.
and that's okay. Maybe I'll pick you up somewhere else. So yeah,
Right.
it's a sense of
Okay.
party more than the grabbing other people's readers type thing.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's an occasion to
It's an
just
occasion, exactly.
right.
Yeah.
Right. Nice. Okay, so let's take some questions from the audience that they're, um, how do you define paranormal women's fiction?
Oh, there's this big list that we had. Now I have to try to remember. So paranormal women's fiction is typically where the heroine, not all characters, but many characters are middle-aged and older. They don't have to be, but we try to focus on middle-aged and older, and we're focusing on life goals. We're focusing on relationships. So it's not about finding the love of your life. That can be in there too, but it's more about you're having a relationship with your sister, with your friends, um, how you get along in life. And then we're adding the paranormal aspect. So a Bigfoot might pop up, or there might be vampires, and we're adding the the adventure aspect. So maybe we're gonna go fight some demons. Maybe mine is she moves into a magical house and then suddenly gains all this magic and, you know, learns to fly, things like that, craziness. So it's wrapping up kind of a middle-aged and older woman's life and experience in with adventure and paranormal aspects. And it's, you know, it's focusing on finding our strength as we're middle-aged and older, and also realizing that we're just out of F's to give, right? We're just like, dude, I'm happy being me. I'm happy where I'm at. There are problems. Sure, I would like to have my 20-year-old body, but I don't. Right. So that's cool too. Like I feel strong where I am, you know? So we're doing a lot of that strength and where we are today.
And trust me, I appreciate that. So we have a question. It looks like this individual is an author of a lit RPG, and he sees a lot of overlap and opportunities with urban fantasy. What do you think would entice more urban fantasy readers to try lit RPG or game lit?
I don't know anything about any of that, honestly, so I don't know. I can't answer that. That's a real, I mean, it's a real good question. And it's, you know, it's good to be asking. I would definitely, how I would solve that for, you know, if I were in the know, obviously he knows lit RPG. I would try to identify all the similarities and then and find out the type of people that, you know, the type of what is it called? The market, it's the demographic. Find the demographic. So male or female, age group, whatnot. Find, you know, those little charts where there's the middle bit that is the same. Find that similarity between the two. And then when you're doing marketing and whatnot, you can target the UF market for that overlap demographic. And they might not even know what this new genre is. So maybe enlighten them or just get them into your book and maybe they'll like it then. So I would definitely figure out the demographic similarities and then try to hit that demographic in urban fantasy to bring them over to your genre.
Excellent advice. Good. So we have a question about, so you mentioned the fact that at some point you put down your writer's hat and you become the publisher. So it's all business.
I'm vicious. I just all emotion gone skis.
So how do you make that leap? Because I think that a lot of artists or authors are, to your point, it's precious to them, right? They've put a lot of energy, a lot of work. So how do you just go, okay, we're done with that and we're just going to be ruthless?
So what really triggers it for me is I write it for fun. I write it because I love it. I revise it to make sure I'm getting that all out there. The second I send it to my editor, I'm realizing if it was just for me, I wouldn't care about an editor. I'm doing an editor for a reader, and a reader is a paying customer, right? So I want to create the best experience for them as possible. So that's why I'm like, okay, you're the editor, you know grammar, you know what should go where, great. So the second I'm changing it for consumption is the second I realize it's no longer mine anymore. Now it is theirs, right? So I need to make it as good as possible. That's when I would need I need an editor for speaking too, for them as humanly possible. And that is the point that I just switch off. Like now it's a widget. So, and I've been in business school, you know, and again, I was an accountant. So I'm a little better at most probably than using that side of my brain. But you know, it's a learned skill as well. So I just learned it earlier. So you have to force yourself to see it as a product. I'll change covers on a drop of a hat. You know, my assistant gets really sad about it. She's like, I really liked that one. I'm like, okay, but nobody else did. So we got to change it so they know, so the reader knows what genre it is. What, you know, I'll change things that whatever needs to be changed, blurb, whatever. Just because I need to be cognizant that it's a product, and I want people to read my product, right? I want people to read the book that I love. So in order to do that, you need to give that book a fighting chance. And to do that, you need to treat it like a product. You need to think about sales and marketing, because that is the thing that's going to get it in people's hands. Now, once it's in their hands, they're experiencing your love for this book, right? But you
Right.
got to get it there. And in order to get it there, you got to be cutthroat about it. You got to take away all of the emotion, and you got to stop treating it like a baby, right? Because I'm not going to just hand my baby off to somebody.
Right.
That's terrible. Maybe I would if they'll give it back later. But anyway.
Depending on the age range, I'm with you.
Right. Yeah, so you need to force yourself to learn to think about it business-wise and not like an artist. Artists are for creation, business is for selling. And if you can't do it, you can go with a publisher. But if you're going to be your own publisher, then you need to learn that skill. And it's a good skill. Like it'll help you in life too, So and that's when you start looking at other people selling their stuff, and you're like, ooh, I could use that. I don't care that it's not a watch. You know what I mean? Or whatever.
Right. So product testing with marketing, you do a lot of product testing, and you mentioned the fact that you change covers. So when you're doing your product testing and you're changing covers, will you change one element like the cover and then give it a set amount of time to test to see how it's performing? Or will you change the cover and the description or the blurb and maybe something else at the same time? How do you do that?
Oh, sorry.
No, go for it.
The first thing I will do is blurb, because blurb is easy, right? First thing we'll do blurb, because cover is not so easy. And also people like to collect books and whatnot. I think they now know just to be careful with me, like wait till I'm all done. So that's first. And then, yeah, so I'll do more research on it. So sometimes I get a cover that I think will work for the book, and then it just doesn't give the right signals to the readers passing through. So yeah, then I'll do more research into the genre, try a different cover. And, if it doesn't improve sales, then obviously I'm like, okay, that's not it. Like, this must be something else, or I messed up again. And at one stage, I did do a cover change. This was way back with the 2014 series. And sales actually went down. So it's like, whoops. So I changed it back. Yeah, pretty immediately. Like I said, I adapt all the time. I'm used to failure. When it comes to that, I'll just change it back. So yeah, change all the little things first, and then do a cover update if you need to. You can also freshen up your older books with new covers. That's a real easy way to make it current again, even if the inside there's some, like, if you have a pager in there, that's not going to be so current, but whatever. So yeah, covers can do a lot to freshen up a series as well.
Let's see. So we have a question. On your website, the first thing I see is your books. I don't even see a picture of you on the front page. I thought that you're supposed to put a picture of yourself to build your brand, but seeing your site, maybe it's better to put the books first. So can you talk a little bit about why that decision and how it impacts your branding?
I mean, they're not, yeah, it's, when it comes to that kind of thing, do whatever you want to do. Some people like to show their face to everyone, and I'm not one of those people. So if you want to know more about me, you'll click about. The first thing I do want to show you is my new release, because I want you, if you're visiting my website, I want you to know that this is the latest thing. Have you gotten that? I think there's two books. So there's the very latest release, and then there's a release right before it. So yeah, I want those very clearly out there, because if someone's looking me up, they're looking me up because of my books, right? So I want them to have all of my books. And if they're desperate to know more about me, because my bio is everywhere, so they can find that in Amazon. So if they're coming to my website, they probably want to know my wares. And so I want to show them my wares first. It's like when you visit a stand in a marketplace, the person might be out there showing like, hi, but what they're really doing is saying, buy my product, right? So they have their product all displayed and set up. I want people to peruse that product. If they want to stalk me, they'll stalk me. They'll find me. I don't care
Right.
about that. So yeah, it's my brand is my voice. My voice is my books, right?
Hmm.
So everything else, they'll just find me on social media. They probably won't even go to my website. So yeah.
Right. Right. So let's talk a little bit about that brand again. I think that that was a really great clarification is that, your image or your picture isn't your brand. It's let's go back to the voice. And how do your voice can be shown on your covers or the interior. So can you talk a little bit about how you developed that brand?
Um, so for me, it was more of a journey. Figuring out, and I have asked questions. I've been to a lot of marketing things, and again, this is marketing not for books. I don't tend to go to a lot of marketing things for books specifically. I go to marketing things that are marketing to everybody, every products,
Mhm.
all the products. And one of the things that was very clear, and social media marketing thing is where I got this. One of the things that was very clear is figure out what makes you you. What makes you unique? There's a
Mhm.
million people. What do people show up to you? Why do they read your books? What about your books makes you different from everybody else? Because
Mhm.
that is what you need to capitalize on. So for me, it's that snark, it's that gallows humor, it's the strong heroines. Um, and it's the sense of we can be in the middle of a shootout and I'm cracking jokes, that kind of
Right.
thing. So it's serious while with that humor. And so once I understood that, and I asked my readers questions. I asked my readers all sorts of things. If I want to know something, I don't hide that I want to know it. I
Mhm.
ask them very clearly, very bluntly, because that's me, right?
Mhm.
Um, and once that and I got that from them, that's what they pick up from my book. So I took that and said, well, that is who I am. Great. And ran with it. So
Mhm.
that helped me identify my voice. Um, I got a logo that is cool. And, they nicknamed me Queen Breene just because of a silly, fun thing we were doing. And so that, it was just, and that stuck. So then I kind of helped build a brand around that. It's like a funny little, it's like an inside joke, really. I
Mhm.
mean, queen of what? Like queen of my toilet throne? Like what? No. So again, it's making fun of myself. It's a funny
Right.
little, so, and that's part of it. That's another part of, my personality and the personality in my books. My heroines always make fun of themselves because
Mhm.
hilarious. Um, so my journey led me to here, and I don't think I could have gotten here if I didn't go to that marketing class and get the questions to ask the readers. What is it about me that makes me unique?
Mhm.
And then take that and run with it. So you have to be a little courageous in that they're identifying parts of you. And if you're an introvert weirdo like me, you don't, if you want to put your head in your little turtle shell and because it's scary,
Mhm.
but put on your big girl pants and it's the business side, right? So once you
Right.
get that business side, you got to run with it because no one else can do you. You
Mhm.
can only do you. So you can be in any trend ever, but it'll still be you. And that is the thing that readers are going to keep reading you for,
Mhm.
not what you're writing, for how you're writing it. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yep. Yeah, it's your voice in the story. Absolutely.
Right, exactly. Your own twist on
Mhm.
a thing that's been done millions of times.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. So we have a question about which social media platform works best for you when you're publishing a book. So are you Facebook, Twitter, TikTok? What are you using?
So 41. So I primarily have been using Facebook, and that is, I think, detrimental. One of my fix-its for myself is I need to be better on Instagram big time because younger people are using Instagram. I
Me
need to
too.
not be so heavily into Facebook because it's getting weird, number one. And number two, I don't want all my eggs in one basket, so to speak, with social media. But and then I want, I've created a reader group off of those platforms. It's my individual, I own it, no one can take it away.
Hmm.
And then my newsletter. So um, I think I put most emphasis on my newsletter and this other reader group where I really engage and interact.
Hmm.
And then the social media sites, I'm trying to be better about just having something out there, having something to engage with, maybe to draw them in to be more personal in these other places.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, that's a work in progress too. So I don't have great answers because I'm not super social media. I don't really like it so much. I don't
Hmm.
use it in my own personal life. So yeah, I think Instagram is supposed to be the up and coming place. So I need to
Right.
definitely be better about it. We can't do
So
everything.
yeah, but that's a really good call out. I mean, you've identified that you're an introvert and that, social media is not necessarily your thing, but you use it for your business.
Right.
How do you identify the channels that you're going to market through and stay true to yourself? Because I'm assuming that it would just be exhausting to keep working on a channel that's not, that doesn't seem true to who you are as a
Right.
person.
And one of the things that I have picked up is don't. So if you cannot use it passionately, then don't use it.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, uh, my brain just scattered off there.
It's okay.
Um, yeah. So when it comes to okay, there's two things. One, paid advertising. I'll advertise anywhere. I am always looking for a place that can properly advertise. And the reason is,
Hmm.
and advertise in a way that a book person will see it. I'm not trying to find them when they're looking for movies because they're looking for something else right now. But
Right.
so when it comes to advertising, I will advertise. I think more places the better because you have more of an opportunity to find that person again and again. They always say it takes 7 times for a person to engage with an advertisement. I think for books it'll be a little less because it's an impulse buy. It's a small priced object. It'll probably be a little less, but you still want to show if you're cold selling, which is they don't know you, they don't know your brand, they just see this image. You need to hit them up a few times, and I want to do that in everywhere. I want to come at them like all around them, so they're like, "Gee, I see this book everywhere. I better just buy
Mhm.
it." But that's what I want. So paid advertising is one thing. Engaging, now that's something absolutely different. You do need to be familiar with the platform. If you really, really, really want to be on Instagram, for example, figure out what about that platform. And I'm saying this like this is what I'm doing right now. I'm not a
Mhm.
master at it. This is what I'm trying to do. Find
Right.
out ways that you want to interact with that platform to figure out how it's user friendly, to figure out if you can like it, right? And if you can't like it, just don't bother. But if you can,
Mhm.
figure out what about it you like, and then try to emulate that because that's what your readers are going to respond to anyway.
Mhm.
And try to integrate that with your products and your life. I think a
Mhm.
lot of people just want to see your mug, and some people are
Right.
really good at that. And I'm just like, why do you want to see this thing? Jesus, my mirror doesn't want to see this thing. Um,
You want
so
to
it's
see the book instead.
yeah, right. I want to hold a book in front of my face. Um, so yeah, I've been trying to figure out how to engage better.
Mhm.
But if it's not going to work, it's not going to work. So go, your readers will find you.
Mhm.
Just make sure that make sure that they know where to find you.
Okay.
Yeah, and play to your strengths for sure.
Mhm. I think that's a really good call out. Um, so as a self-published author, can you give us some tools that you just can't live without?
Tools like software or tools like, um,
Whatever. What is it that, you get up in the day and you're like, as an author, I always use this. It could be your software, it could be
oh,
your
yeah.
team, it could be, whatever it is.
So there's a few things that need to have, editor, obviously,
Hmm.
um, newsletter, just for being able to engage properly. Um, as far as writing goes, I use this thing called, I'm actually just going to look real quick, Scrivener. And I don't even use all the features of it. I use hardly any of the features, but it has this little word counter thing in the corner. And it's like I'm really goal oriented. So
Hmm.
I write 5,000 words a day. I started writing 5,000. I've kept going with it. Um, and so I set the thing for 5,000, and you can see it like changes color as it goes. It's pretty amazing.
Hmm.
You're like, okay, keep going, you're almost there. That is really good for me just because I'm goal oriented. Um, and as far as the business goes, besides the newsletter, I would say, engaging, my off-brand, reader group is really great. I always check in there, say a
Mhm,
few things, comment. It's not about the work, it's just about engaging with people,
mhm,
because I think that's extremely valuable for everything, for yourself
mhm,
and for them and for your business and everything.
mhm,
Um, so as far as like everyday, yeah, those are the type of tools. And then we've already touched on the other stuff like,
mhm,
back matter, social media, having those links everywhere, that stuff's for the business. Um,
mhm.
yeah.
Okay. Um, Sorry, I just had one of those moments where I had something I was going to ask you and I just forgot about it.
Yeah, like flies away. You like put
It
your head
is.
like and it comes out that side, it's
It
gone.
does. It does. I swear, as soon as I turned 40, that was the thing. It's
I
like,
know.
I
What
was on
the heck?
task. Why did I come in this room? Yeah,
I know. And then you're like, well, I don't know. Maybe I'll just stay here for a while and see what happens.
exactly. Exactly. All right. Well, actually, we are at time, so maybe that's what I was saying. I don't know. We'll see if it shows up. It'll show up later today.
Right.
But
You'll be like, "Ugh."
that's what I wanted, and it was so vital. It was like this
Yeah,
huge, earth-shattering question.
yeah. Now nobody will know.
Exactly. All right. Well, I definitely want to thank you for to spending this hour with us today. It was um, fun, funny, and definitely enlightening.
Yeah, I bring the weird. Thanks for having thanks
All
for
good.
thanks for having all of this crazy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for everybody who's joining us, thank you for joining us. The recording of today's session, you'll get an email with a link to it tomorrow. But if you can't wait that long, I actually do post it today. So later today, if you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, you'll get a little alert that we've uploaded today's session. If not, wait for the email tomorrow and it'll have a link to the recording and it'll also have a link to our upcoming sessions. We've got some other great authors that we'll be talking to over the coming weeks. But thank you for joining us. And as always, happy publishing.
You too. Thanks.
All right. Bye.